Textured protein. What the heck is it? I see this ingredient in pretty much every plant-based meat. There's textured soy protein, textured vegetable protein, textured wheat protein, textured pea protein. There's textured proteins from just about every sort of vegetable and plant and legume. Now me personally, I love to try to figure out ways to make things at home, but textured protein is one of those things that's almost impossible to make without the help of large-scale factory mechanical processing. Now, most people in the plant-based world already know of one of the most popular textured proteins, and that is TVP. I've used textured vegetable protein quite a bit here on the show. I've used it for everything from chicken nuggets, burger patties, sausage patties. I've used it at home to make sloppy joes. You can use it for chilies, and just about anywhere where you would have meat, any kind of meat, you could use a textured protein, or a TVP. Now, most vegetarians and vegans already know of the most common TVP, the TVP flake. This is the one that's sold in stores and bulk sections. A lot of times it's sold under the Bob's Red Mill brand, but you can get this one just about any grocery store. I got my TVP at Publix. The flake is the most common, it's the most widely used, and it's one of the easiest ones to use. But what a lot of people don't know is you can get TVP chunks. Kind of like bigger flakes, bigger pieces to use in things where you need bigger, bitier chunks of vegetable protein, a bigger protein chunk. You can also find the TVP, the textured vegetable protein shred, where it's tubes of vegetable protein. There is the soy chunk, the big giant ball of chunk of vegetable protein. And then you have different sized vegetable protein slices. Now, all of these vegetable proteins are made in a very similar manner. They take an isolated vegetable protein, like a soy protein isolate, a pea protein isolate, or even a wheat protein isolate, and they run them through an extruder. That extruder heats and steams the protein isolate and forces it through a hot extrusion that when the protein hits the air, it expands and forms a very fibrous, very chewy-like substance. And that's what you got here today, where this here is about 50% protein, and then once you rehydrate it, it goes down to about a 16% protein, something that mimics a little bit closer to meat. So recently I was in Ohio visiting family for the holidays, and my family and I were out to eat, and my mom got a steak hoagie sandwich. Now this was a steak sandwich that had a steak-like patty on a bun with onions and peppers and mushrooms, just like what you would think with a steak hoagie. My mom's not vegan or vegetarian. In her mind, she probably has never eaten TVP. But after a quick look at the hoagie, I realized that that meat was a little different than your common ground beef or steak hoagie sandwich. And I asked the waitress if she knew the brand of the hoagie or if she knew the ingredients, if there was an ingredients label on the box. She took a picture of the steak hoagie sandwich, and the second ingredient on the label was textured vegetable protein. We already know that different proteins are used. A textured protein is used in the Beyond Burger. They use a textured pea protein. The Impossible Burger uses a textured protein. They use a textured wheat protein. But then I started digging a little deeper to find out what non-vegan and vegetarian products used a textured vegetable protein, just to see. Now, it was a little tough because I couldn't search for textured vegetable protein on labels. I had to literally go through things that I would assume had a TVP in it. I heard that some chilies do, which they do. Hormel canned chili uses beef and TVP as a filler. The Walmart Flanders beef patties, they're supposed to be burgers, but they use TVP, that's the second ingredient. And the real beef hoagie patties that are also sold at Walmart also use textured vegetable protein as a filler. It's pretty interesting how many things actually use TVP in them. So textured vegetable protein goes by a lot of different names, and that's why a lot of times it's not seen on the label. It goes by TVP, textured vegetable protein, textured soy protein, or TSP, soy meat, soya chunks, or soy flakes. Textured vegetable protein was invented in the 1960s by the Archer Daniel Midlands Corporation, and they still own the trademark for the TVP name. That's why you see it go by a bunch of different names. Now, it was originally sold for use as a meat extender in a lot of canned chilies. That's why I was able to find it fairly quickly in the Hormel chili. By 1968, a lot of manufacturers started to realize the variety of food that they can include TVP on to extend the amount of meat inside of a food. It wasn't until 1971, when it was approved for use in the school lunch program, that TVP actually skyrocketed in popularity. If you were in elementary school in the 70s and 80s, pretty much every single one of those burgers, meatloaf patties, chicken patties that you ate were most likely produced with about 50% TVP. So let's rehydrate a few of these just so you could see how incredibly versatile they are. I'm gonna start right off the bat with one of my favorites, just the chunks. Now this is a little bit different than the flakes as it's a bigger chunk. It's gonna be a little bit more meaty. And I'm also gonna rehydrate these slices, and you can see how versatile they are. I'm just gonna make a broth with a few cups of water, about a teaspoon of Marmite. That's probably about a tablespoon of Marmite. Now, because meat is usually loaded with fats, textured vegetable proteins don't have any fats, I'm gonna use about a tablespoon of coconut oil inside my broth. And then lastly, I'm gonna use about a teaspoon of mushroom seasoning. Mushroom seasoning's really gonna up that umami, really up that savory flavor. I'll be honest, just on its own, I bet you this is a really nice broth. Ooh, wow, that is. Now in its dehydrated form, TVP can last for about a year on the shelf. Once you hydrate it, you only got a few days. So I'm gonna do about a cup of the chunks, the slices, and we're gonna do about that cup, like I said originally, of the chunks here, the large chunks. And then to rehydrate it, I'm just gonna put double the amount of liquids. Make sure I made enough broth. Should start to rehydrate pretty quick. It's gonna take about 20 minutes or so. Let's let these guys hang out in their broth, and then we'll be back in 20 minutes to cook up some goodness. So it's been about 20 minutes. These guys are rehydrated. These soy chunks here, the strips, they have a very, like almost like chicken-like texture to them. Very juicy because they've been marinating for so long. So I just quickly minced up an onion, threw in a little bit of oil. I'm gonna take the chunks here, strain out the liquid. We're just gonna drop these chunks in here. This is gonna make the quickest, like, chopped cheese sandwich you've ever had. So I'm just gonna add a nice drop of some kosher salt, a ton of black pepper, drop in some liquid smoke to kind of smoky these guys up a little bit. But for me, I just like to drop a little bit of barbecue sauce on here. Drop on, this is the VioLife plant-based cheese. This stuff's pretty awesome. Melts really well, works really well in this type of like sandwich. There it is. I mean, childhood. I mean, honestly, there's so many different ground meat products on the market, but the original just TVP chunk works so well. It's so easy. It stays really awesome in a pantry because it's dehydrated. And it's awesome. I mean, that is like downright good. Dang, that is good. And not that I'm trying to trick anybody, but I do believe that most people would eat this, no question asked, as like a regular loose meat sandwich. I don't think anybody would know the difference. I think if you were to add this to a chili, you could probably win a chili competition. I should do that. Okay, so now let's take these soy chunks here, these large kind of nugget-like chunks, and turn them into something really incredible. I'm just gonna make a really quick chicken nugget. So I'm just whisking up a really quick egg replacer. I got Bob's Red Mill egg replacer. I'm gonna do about 1 cup of all-purpose flour. And then I have a cup of ice cold water. Now I'm just gonna pour the water in, not the ice, but you want the water to be ice cold because that is what's gonna make a difference when you're frying this. This is what gives a tempura batter or the McDonald's chicken nugget batter its texture. We're gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper, and then I'm just gonna fry these using a set of chopsticks. It's easier to just dip the textured protein in with chopsticks and then dump them right into the fryer. Now, I know I just recently made the McDonald's chicken nugget, the chicken nugget recipe, but I'll tell you, this one right here goes together quicker, and they are good. I mean, and wow, do they taste just like chicken. So simple. Now, I know I went the easy route with the pucks and just fried them up because they're chicken nugget shaped. But the soy slices can be marinated to taste like beef, taste like chicken. They could be used in stir fries. You could make a General Tso's out of them. It's kind of endless what you could do with the textured soy slices. So I'll leave a link to my Amazon store where we're gonna have all of this stuff to where you can check out any of these, experiment with them. It's pretty wild and pretty endless what you could do with TVP. If you haven't yet, please make sure you click the subscribe button and click this video right here. It's gonna be another one of my chicken